Let's start with, I think tonight we'll start with an opening song. What do you think? Yeah, we can start. Let's do Kia Shmera, page 229. Sorry, 129. Key, that's a bad key. Let's do Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereini Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereini Oti Le'omead Beino Uveini Oti Le'omead Beino Uveini Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereini Ki Eshmera Shabbat El Yishmereini Oti Le'omead Beino Uveini Oti Le'omead Beino Uveini. On page 128. Maya Hayom Shabbat Shalom Maya Hayom Shabbat Shalom Maya Hayom Shabbat Shalom Maya Hayom Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shabbat Shalom Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos to everyone. It's nice to see you at the end of what turned out to be a beautiful week. It's good to see all of you, and as I think most of you know, it is especially good to see Jordan Gorfinkel, also known as Gorf, who is our guest speaker, our scholar in residence tonight and tomorrow. I'm going to be introducing Gorf a little bit later, and he'll be speaking to us at the end of our service. But I know you did not get injured because of your flight up here, but we're sorry to hear that you broke your arm, correct? Or injured it in some... Injured it, okay.
The first thing that everybody asks is,
How's the other guy, right?
And I always tell them, the pavement is doing very well. Thank you very much.
Well, we're glad you're here, and we're looking forward to your insights and unique approach to Judaism and Jewish history a little bit later. So we're going to continue by lighting our Shabbat candles. So I'd like to invite Wendy Cochran to come up to the bima, and you can follow the blessing on page 120.
Yeah.
And I say, and then we sing, correct?
Yeah, or you can light and we can just sing together, whichever you like.
Yes. Oh, we can sing?
Yeah.
Oh, let's do that. I like singing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you, Wendy. We are going to continue with Shalom Aleichem on page 142. How many melodies of Shalom Aleichem do you know? Because I know at least 3.
You know 3? Well, sing me the third one.
Well, how many do you know?
I only know 2.
Oh, well, you pick the one that you want to do.
Oh no, I know a few. I remember another one. Let's see. We'll do the Debbie Friedman one tonight. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruchuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tekem Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, is on page 146. If you are able, please rise.
Lai la 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 la. Lai la 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 la. Lai la 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 la. Lai la 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 la. Lai la 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 la. Lai la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
49 for the English translation of Ma'ariv Aravim. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Ma'ariv Aravim. Page 151. Please join me for the English translation now of Ahavat Olam. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uv'dektecha v'derech uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha ukchartam la'ot al yadecha v'hayu latotafot b'eineinecha uktavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Mi Chamocha is on page 158.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא עושה מלכותך ראובניך, בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh.
Page 161. Gorf is going to be talking with us over the Shabbaton, over this weekend, about superheroes and I'm sure superpowers. And I would say with this particular prayer, we read about one of God's superpowers, and that is the power to protect us, to offer a Sukkot Shalom, a shelter of peace when we go to sleep and amidst all of life's challenges and adversities and tribulations. This is a prayer that we recite every Shabbat, and it is one that I'd like to do together, first in English, and then Gordon is going to sing it for us in Hebrew. Please join me. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei Sukkot Shalom, aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha, ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha, ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
The Amidah is on page 164. If you're able, please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi agit hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel chasadim tovim, v'koneh hakol, v'zocher chaste avot v'imahot, u'mevi geula livnei v'nehem, l'ma'an shemo be'ahava, melech ozer u'moshia u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechaye hakol atah rav lehoshia, mechalkel chayim b'chesed, mechaye hakol b'rachamim rabim, somech noflim v'rofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, Lishene afar micha mocha ba'gevurot umidom melach melech memit umechaye umatmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman ata lahachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol. Page 178. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasihim Leolam. 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 Ki ata hu melech adon lechol bashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasihim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasihim leolam. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל, וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. Oh, let's see, I forgot the melody, my own melody. Let's see. Bechol eight, uvechol sha'a bishlomecha. Bechol eight, uvechol sha'a bishlomecha. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
At this point in our service, we think of those in need of healing, healing of body, healing of spirit, and healing of heart. And we ask God to bestow the bracha, the blessing of refuah shlema, full and complete healing on the following men and women from our CBS family or those known and loved by our congregation. Ilana Massey, Kevin Brackett, Michelle Camissia, Joshua Hyman, Diane Butler, Jesse Friedman, Marjorie Gilberg, Michael Blend, Jim Mates, Janet Marbury, Brenda Flood, Sharon Blevis, Joe Nelson, Alan Goldstein, Sherry Cohos, Lynn McManus, Walter Wilmert, Gail Showley, Jerry Mautner, Kirk Whitlatch, Barbara Cosson, Etta Kessler, David Rabb, Jensen Beach, Carl Smith, Aaron Ledden, and Geraldine Kokich. And if there's anyone here or at home watching who would like to share a name, I invite you to please do so. The Misha Berach is on page 511.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with Reshuah Shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
The Aleinu is on page 586. If you're able, please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedula le'yotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, ve'gora aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
I have the great honor now of inviting board member Deborah Greenstein to please come up to the bima to share some important announcements with you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Obviously, today is our Scholar in Residence weekend is here. We're thrilled to have Jordan B. Gorfinkel for 2 sessions tomorrow, Saturday 25th at 10:30 a.m. Moses and Superman, What Superheroes Teach Us About Judaism and What Judaism Teaches Us About Superheroes. And at 4 p.m., Everything I Know About Passover I Learned from Batman. March 27th at 7 p.m. on Zoom, Soul Sisters Book Club will discuss Becoming Eve, My Journey from Ultra-Orthodox Rabbi to Transgender Woman by Chava Stein. April 1st, Rabbinic Intern Art Grand will lead the Torah study at 10:30 here at CBS. April 2nd at 4 p.m. we will have the San Francisco choral artists performing their show Sound and Not Much Silence. And the catered second night of Pesach Seder is back. You can register now online or by contacting Lauren in the synagogue office. Adults are $65, teens $35, and kids 12 and younger are free. Please register online. April 17th at 6 p.m., please join Rabbi Goldstein, Gordon, and guest speaker Cy Carifiel on Holocaust Memorial Day, in addition to music and a commemorative candle lighting in honor of the 6 million. CBS member and Holocaust survivor Cy Carfiel will share his experiences during that tragic period in world and Jewish history. And a big save the date item, it's time to celebrate CBS's 70th anniversary. We will be celebrating at summer, but kick off with a 3-day weekend, May 19th, 20th, and 21st. Tickets for Saturday the 20th are now on sale. We'd like to give warm wishes to this week's birthdays and anniversaries. Happy birthday to Alan Bergman, Maya Baruch, Charlotte Smith, Debbie Alterstar, Jonas Kaufman, Lauren Snyder, Michelle Frisch, and Talia Orr. Happy anniversary to Liz and Stephen Amendola, Shane and Heidi Solinger, and Ernie and Irit Weir.
As we near the end of our service, our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We honor those who have died during this past year. Dean Wilson, Norman Charney, David Alpert, Renee Munoz, Michael Cosson, Paul Dworsky, Ed Eston, Micah Bisel, Jill Daly-Katz, Gabriel Harrison Escalera, Colonel Ed West, Joe McCaffrey, Beverly Eigner, Ruth Morlett, Lawrence Blake, Othello Thornton, Alan Rosen, Fred Goldman, Ann Rapson, Bob Massey, Lucille Posner, Bunny Goldstein, and Bill Lenish. We also remember and honor the yard sites of Joseph Wood, Isadora Smith, Harry Abramovitz, Suzanne Kramer Weir, Jacob Sherman, Sidney Dover, Dr. I. Harold Shevlin, Esther Hadassah Frisch, Ruth Fled Green, and Ray Shapiro. And if anyone has a name they'd like to add, I invite you to please do so. I'd like to ask the mourners to please rise, as well as those who wish to stand with them. The mourner's Kaddish is on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, be'alma divrach herete v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudsha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all those in mourning and comfort to all those who are bereaved. And let us all say, amen. Please be seated. Before I introduce our guest speaker, I'd like to turn to Gordon for our final song.
Yeah. Turning to me, eh? I guess I'm the logical one to turn to for the closing song, huh? Okay. Why don't we end with the Oseh Shalom that comes at the end of the Kaddish, Mourner's Kaddish. Everybody should know that. I think we were on 598, right?
Yeah.
So the last three lines. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. There's my last fret. Rabbi, you sounded great. Oh, it was you.
Different
Thank you.
person.
That was very nice. What a nice surprise.
You folks have such a treat. You get treated to James Taylor leading your service every single week. He's fantastic.
We know that. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Such
you.
an honor.
Thank you.
Just need to stand
Thank
in the middle here. So,
Today is my bar mitzvah.
today is your bar mitzvah. I think this is the first time we've had a guest speaker who actually came up during the service out of sheer enthusiasm. So thank you. So I am delighted to introduce Jordan Gorfinkel, Gorf. We arranged for Gorf to be our scholar in residence many months ago, and I'm excited for two reasons. One is Gorf is our first scholar in residence in 3 years. We haven't done this since before COVID, and it's always such a treat to have someone bring their special gifts and talents to our community from outside. And Gorf received rave reviews from the other congregations where he's spoken. It's also a treat for me on a personal level because I am a total comic book nerd. I used to collect comic books. I sold all of them before I moved to Napa in 2017, but I had some good Superman and Batman and Spider-Man. I got rid of all of them, unfortunately, but I didn't want to schlep them all the way to California. Gorf is going to be talking tonight, tomorrow morning, and tomorrow afternoon about different aspects of superheroes, supervillains, and how they all relate to Jewish identity, to the Jewish tradition, to Jewish history. He is a speaker, with a great deal of experience at JCCs, at synagogues, probably in other venues I'm not even aware of. He's an author, an editor, a cartoonist. I have two of his books here. One is the Koran Tanakh graphic novel. This one is the Book of Esther that he wrote. Now, I don't know how many books they've done, Koran, in this series, but this is very exciting to see. Also, the Passover Haggadah graphic novel. He has turned the Haggadah itself into a graphic novel. So you are going to be talking about a lot of things. I'm going to sit down and listen to you. If we have time, we're going to have some questions at the end. But without further ado, I would like to invite Gorf up to our bima.
Thank you, Rabbi Niles. Thank you, all of you. And to clarify, the last talk did go well. This was not a result of anything going wrong. See if I can get this to stand up here. By the way, for those folks who are watching on streaming, where are they seeing it from? All the way up there. Okay. Oh, wow, on high. Hello. Shabbat Shalom, or soon to be Shabbat Shalom to all of you watching at home. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry you can't be here in person, but I'll give you an occasional shout out to make sure that you feel included, because inclusion is a very important part of my MO, my modus operandi. And by the way, for those of you, I don't think you can see it in the cameras up there, but for those of you who are sitting in back, I'm not an ordained rabbi. You can come forward. You don't have to feel like you have to sit all the way in the back of the room. Feel free. My name is Jordan B. Gorfinkel, and my nickname is the first four letters of my last name, which has a very important bearing on the holiday that's coming up, and I'll explain. So first, I'm going to give you a little bit of a quiz. We're going to go back to our Hebrew school days, and I see panic on the look of many of your eyes, but don't worry, these are not trick questions. These are actually pretty straightforward. So folks, what is the next major festival or holiday, as it were, that we are going to be celebrating? Shout it out. Okay, good. One of three. Number two, how many plagues, Makot, do we commemorate on the holiday of Passover? 10. Good. There's always a wise guy who's read on who says 50, 200, 250. Okay. What is the second plague? Sfardea. Very good. And how do you spell Sfardea in English? In English. What's the translation? Sfardea is a ribbit, what is that? Frog. Good. How do you spell frog backwards? Gorf. Gorf, frog, Gorf. Now you're never going to forget me. And I am a Jewish cartoonist. And the reason I am a Jewish cartoonist is because I started my career as the editor of Batman comics. And during a period of about a decade or so, I oversaw with a great team of people. It takes a village, or as I like to say, it takes a shtetl to be able to create a world of comic books. And we created over 2,000 stories with the greatest character in all of fiction. And you may argue with me on that, but you will lose. And then I retired amicably from that job, and I started my own little boutique shop called Avalanche Comics Entertainment Ace, which does visual storytelling for corporations, for nonprofits, for foundations, and of course for entertainment companies. And at the same time, I was doing Jewish cartooning. And I have a 4-panel cartoon strip that's at Jewish Cartoon, Instagram, Facebook, and occasionally in Jewish newspapers. It was in J, the local newspaper, for a while. Not anymore. Feel free to request that I could reinstate it. By the way, I see a little confusion on faces over here. Does everybody know what a newspaper is? No? Okay. A newspaper is when you take the internet, you print it out, and you hand it to people. Okay. And then I also, in addition to doing a 4-panel cartoon, go to summer camps and schools and JCCs and synagogues, and I lead a Jewish cartoon workshop. And in that workshop, we take the same tools that professionals use, and we use the same exact system as professionals use to do 4-panel cartoons, usually about some kind of a theme, like Passover or Purim or so forth. And then we collect it into a comic book that we hand out and everybody can enjoy and learn from. And oftentimes people will say to me, well, what if I can't draw? What if I can't tell a story? I don't know if you can see all the way from back there, but it's very simple. It's just the combination of words and pictures in the simplest form. It goes all the way back to Egypt and hieroglyphics. It's stick figures and words in combination. And that is, in fact, the difference between an illustrated or illuminated book, or a storybook, and a graphic novel. Because in an illuminated or illustrated book, you will have words and pictures that are side by side. Whereas in a graphic novel or a comic book, you will have the words and pictures fused together. And that is the system that I use in my graphic novels. And I know what you might be thinking right now. You're bringing a comic book into a sanctuary of God? Oh, that is such a shanda. Terrible. But I hope to convince you by the end of Shabbat, over the course of my 3 talks, that it is just the opposite. It is not an embarrassment. It is, in fact, an excellent medium for bringing out our Judaism, the best in Judaism, and moreover, for empowering all of us from all backgrounds to be able to immerse themselves in Judaism using the power of Marvel superheroes. Which leads me to a little bit of a story. We're going to be talking more about the history of superheroes and their creation from Jewish immigrants tomorrow. But for today, I want to get into a very important story from the Torah. It comes from Captain America: Civil War. Okay, I'm sure you're all familiar with that. It's the 6th book of the Torah. And if you have seen that book from the Torah, which is one of the Marvel movies, then you know that there was a fundamental disagreement between Captain America and Iron Man, that both of them are very strong leaders, and they had different opposing viewpoints on how the Avengers, their superhero group, or shoal, if you will, should be led. And I don't know about you, but when I see the Marvel movies and I see the superheroes bickering, it feels like a Hadassah meeting to me. And you can see why, because the DNA of these superheroes really comes from the Jewish people. So Captain America and Iron Man are arguing about how the Avengers, let's call it even their school, their yeshiva, if you will, is going to be operated, what the attendance or the admittance policy is going to be. And Iron Man believes that it should be a very strict admittance policy, that only those who have the qualifications should be let in. But Captain America feels that those who are aspiring to be superheroes, they should also be let in. And it's a very difficult argument that they're having, and it comes to, well, a civil war. Spoiler alert, but it's there in the title, so I think it's kind of obvious. And I began thinking about that because, as Rabbi Niles mentioned before, I've been touring. I've been all across this great land, and indeed around the world, talking about Jews and superheroes. And this past summer, for example, I had the honor of being in Israel and then South Africa. That was a wonderful adventure. And I've been looking forward to coming to, is Napa officially part of Marin County, or are we in a different county?
We're its own county.
Sonoma County?
Napa County.
Napa County. It's literally its own. Okay, forgive me. When I was in 6th grade, I lived in San Rafael. And I went to Brandeis, that time it was called Brandeis Hill Old Day School. And just a little more of an introduction, and then I'll go on with the stories. I'm a Jewish mutt. I come from a variety of different Jewish backgrounds. I moved about 11 times before I was 21. I lived on all 3 coasts. I lived in Israel. I went to public school. I went to Reform. I went to Conservative. I went to what we call Orthodox. I don't like that term. I prefer the term Shomer Shabbat, observant. I went to yeshiva in Israel and Jerusalem for a year, and then I went to Boston University, a public university where I studied communications, which I like to call a little bit of everything and a whole lot of nothing. And then that's why I got a BS out of it. Forgive me. And in all those travels, and summer camps, URJ, Camp Ramah. In fact, this comic book over here is a comic book from Camp Ramah. One of my most formative years was, in fact, in Camp Ramah in Ojai. And I'll tell you something funny about that. When I was in Camp Ramah in Ojai, they had certain traditions, because, it's camp, that you have all kinds of traditions that you immerse yourselves in that get carried on. After I was done with Camp Ramah and I moved once again, I went to an Orthodox camp in Wisconsin called Camp Moshava, or as the locals call it, Camp Moshava. And I brought, as one of the leaders of the camp, one of the program directors, traditions from Camp Ramah to Camp Moshava that have now been spread around. And what I love about that is nobody even remembers that the conservative movement inspired some traditions that are gloriously held in the Orthodox movement camp right now. And likewise, one of the other things I do is I sing a cappella, which means that I sing in harmony with just the human voice. As Gordon can tell you, many times we'll say, oh, you sing a cappella, that means you sing without music. No, we sing with music, we just sing only with our voices. And I like to say that I bring harmony in both senses of the word, communal harmony, but also musical harmony. And we bring together groups of Jewish people, regardless of their Jewish backgrounds. And now you can see on Hillel campus, on campuses at Hillels all over the United States, you will have, there are over 50 of them, you will have these a cappella groups that really spawned from that idea in early 1990s, the Jewish a cappella group, that are bringing people together, that are bridging Jewish gaps through harmony, through music. So that's my MO. That's what I like to do. I like to bring people together. I like to go to where they are. I am myself a practicing observant Jew. Again, people may call that Orthodox if you're applying labels, but I feel comfortable everywhere, and I loved this service. I mean, the service was so musical and relaxing and spiritual, and I found so much meaning in it, and I can't tell you how incredible it is to be here for this Shabbat, sharing the experience with you. And in one of my previous journeys to the Stephen Wise Temple in Bel Air, which is an incredible institution. It has hundreds of families and hundreds of students. I was doing the Jewish cartoon workshop, and I needed somebody to draw the cover for the cartoon book, for the comic book. Now, as I said before, when I do these workshops, I tell everybody, don't worry about drawing. It's not about drawing, it's about storytelling. If you can, you know what, I'll ask you all right here, show of hands. Can you all draw a stick figure? Yes, of course. You at home, you didn't raise your hand. Okay, much better. And can you tell a story? Like if I ask you, what did you do today? Can you tell me what you did today? Hands. Yes, of course. And finally, can you write words on a page? Neatly. Doctors do not have to raise their hands. Okay, yes, we can do that. So you can draw cartoons. But inevitably, there is somebody in the amongst the participants in the cartoon workshop who draws very well. And I noticed that there was a young lady who had sort of a punk do. She had a haircut with dyed hair and maybe a couple of piercings. She was probably in, I don't know, 6th, 7th grade or so. And she could draw very well. And I asked her, would you please be my comic book cover illustrator? And she hemmed and hawed, and she looked a little anxious about it. She said, I don't know. I think I have to ask permission. I said, do you mind asking permission? She did. She got permission. She sat down, and she stayed all the way through her lunch period, 2 hours. And at the end, she came out with a stunning cover. I wish I had it to show you. I'll try to link you to it later on. This stunning comic book cover, and I was so proud of her. And I saw that inside of her, she had that inner conflict. That conflict that Captain America and Iron Man had between whether she should follow the rules strictly or she should be more open to new ideas and new approaches. And I began to think, how can I find a solution to that problem for all of us? Because all of us experience that in our own Jewish practice, even just going to work every day. We are Jews, and we are also Americans. We are secular, and we are religious. And this dichotomy can be an incredible inner conflict, as we say in drama. It can be a real tension that you have to find your way through. I mean, one might say it's an inner civil war that you might marvel at. Oh, boy. Yes, thank you. I passed a hotel. Right before this, I was in Fort Lauderdale. At a scholar in residence, and no, I take it back. I was on South Beach in Miami. Fort Lauderdale was a scholar in residence, but I was staying with relatives. And I passed a hotel called the Fritz Hotel, and I couldn't resist doing a quick Instagram video where I passed by and said, you know, at this hotel, you never have to worry about breaking anything, because if you do, it's on the Fritz. Thank you. That's my dad joke for today. Okay. Anyway, I don't get paid for my comedy. I'll go back to the superheroes and and Judaism. So this is an inner conflict. And when I have inner conflicts, I look, of course, to the Torah to help solve the problem. Now, in the Talmud, there's a fascinating story right at the beginning of the Talmud where Rabban Gamliel was the head of the Avengers of the time, which was the Sanhedrin. It was the body of law or the school of law in the ancient times, about 2,000 years ago, a little less than 2,000 years ago. And he had a very strict admittance policy. He said only those who meet the highest qualifications of Jewish law can be my students. And that means that their inside and their outsides must match. He did not want any inner conflict. He did not want the civil war. He wanted people who had already resolved those issues. Well, comes along another rabbi, I believe it was Rabbi Joshua, and Rabbi Joshua had a difference of opinion, and he was a very, very meek guy. These people were all incredible personalities. Rabban Gamliel was a perfectionist. He was probably what we would call ADHD or OCD nowadays. And Rabbi Joshua was the complete opposite. And long story short, the Talmud tells us that because of the way that Rabban Gamliel treated Rabbi Joshua in that disagreement, he was deposed. The rest of the Sanhedrin said, we can't deal with you anymore, we want you out. Now they needed a new head of the Sanhedrin, but there was a problem. They couldn't hire Rabbi Joshua because then it would look like they were playing politics. They needed to look to somebody else. So who did they turn to? Logically, they turned to the 17-year-old amongst them, seriously. And his name was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And who was this guy? Well, if you're familiar at all with the Passover Haggadah, and if you don't know this section, it's illustrated right here in this graphic novel. I urge you to check it out. He is the Kiven Shivim Shana guy, which is translated as, it's as if he were 70 years old. Why? Because when he got the offer to be the head of the Sanhedrin, he went home that night to his wife, and he said, what do you think about it? His wife laughed at him, and she said, you don't look a year above 13, much less 17, much less 70. So I think that you shouldn't take the job. You're going to be laughed out of town. And the next morning he wakes up, and what happens? He's got the long gray beard. He's got the snow white hair. He is the very model of what we picture as being the ancient rabbi. And the first thing he does when he enters the top job at the Sanhedrin is he loosens up all of the admittance rules. Yes, now anybody who has that conflict inside, that inner conflict, that civil war, now you can come. You see, because if you want to be somebody who is going to be a great Jew, but you're not quite there on the map yet, you're just, you're on the path, on the derech, as we say, on the path, then we welcome you. And something fascinating happened. The roles exploded. There were so many people who wanted to join in. And even Rabban Gamliel began to think, maybe I made a mistake by being so strict. So if Rabban Gamliel himself is conflicted about this, we haven't solved the problem yet. So in order to solve the problem, I look to the next body of Torah, which is, of course, the Talmud of Milchemet HaKochavim, Star Wars Episode 3, what was that episode? Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith. Now, what happens there? For those of us who are not familiar, Anakin Skywalker is the don't laugh, this is serious Torah, at least for Rabbi Niles and I. For the rest of you, go with it. So Anakin Skywalker was very powerful in the Force. And in case you don't know, the Force is the metaphor for God in the Star Wars universe. Very powerful in the Force. The Force was with him. And he wanted to be a member of the Sanhedrin, the Jedi Council. He also wanted to be a Jedi Knight, which is to say ordained as a rabbi of the Jedi. And the council, the Sanhedrin, they were very nervous about that because he was kind of a hothead. He was more Rabban Gamlielish. And they said, in a compromise, we are going to let you be a Jedi Knight. We're going to let you be on the Sanhedrin, but we're not going to anoint you a Jedi Knight. And the result of them not solving that civil war, that inner conflict, 50-year spoiler alert, he became Darth Vader, and he wiped out all the Jedi. Not necessarily the conclusion that I was trying to get to. So the next piece of Torah that I think solves the problem is another youth, one that we've been reading about for the past several chapters. In fact, it was just in this past Parshat HaShavua, and we will be benefiting from this guy's work over the next parshiot. And he is Bezalel. Bezalel was the 13-year-old kid who was in charge of being the contractor, the architect and the contractor for building the sanctuary of God in the desert, the Mishkan. Now, show of hands and be honest. If you had to build a house and you wanted a contractor for building that house, how many of you would hire your 13-year-old child? Show of hands. That's what I thought. And yet, this fellow was deemed by God to be the ultimate architect. He had just come out of Egypt. How do you know any of this stuff? And yet he did, because he had that talent. And people would often come up to me when I was a kid, and they saw me doodling many times in places that I should not have been doodling, like on desks and on walls and on other things. Don't tell my teachers. And he had that talent. But in the Torah, the talent is called Ruach HaKodesh. He had the Spirit of God in him. And I love this because it means that when he built the Aron Kodesh, when he built the Holy Ark, it says that he built it with gold on the inside and gold on the outside. And the Talmud comes around to say, what does this teach us? This teaches us that all of us, every Jew, from the most scholarly to the one who aspires to be the most scholarly, is like that Ark of God. Gold on the inside, gold on the outside. And that's, I think, what Captain America and Iron Man, what Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Joshua, what Darth Vader and the Jedi, and finally, what God and Moses were all wrestling with. How do we, all of us, find that solution to the Civil War and balance the gold on the inside and the gold on the outside? And when I was before this young lady, who was my cover artist at the great Stephen Wise Temple, and I saw her cover, I thought it was beautiful, I took a picture with her, I think a selfie or whatever, and she's smiling in the picture, and then I bid her goodbye. And afterwards, the principal came up to me, and she had a particular look on her face, a very uncomfortable look. And she said to me, do you know who that student was? And I said, yeah, she was my cover illustrator. Why, what's the big deal? And she said, no. You don't realize how much trouble this girl has been. For the past week, she has been disrupting in class. She has not engaged in any studies, never mind Jewish studies, any studies at all. We've called in her parents, and we just didn't know what we were going to do with her. We thought we would have to kick her out. This is the first time, Gorf, which is what backwards? Very good, okay, just checking. This is the first time, Gorf, that we have seen her engaged, ever. And I said to the principal, probably a little bit too flippantly, but the reason why is she's a visual learner. The way that she approaches her education, her knowledge, her understanding, is by moving her hand and by picturing things with her imagination. Some people learn by rote, and some people like me are visual learners, some are audio learners, there's all kinds of different learners. She needed a different path in order to be able to balance the gold on the inside and the gold on the outside. And that, to me, brings things full circle, because we're not a top-down religion. We don't have a pope. We're a bottom-up religion. As we say in the Haggadah, which we will do in 2 weeks, every single year, all of us should see ourselves as if we are coming out of Egypt today, because we are all storytellers, and we are all knowledgeable. We are all capable of being the head of the Sanhedrin, a Jedi Knight, a comic book artist. We are all capable of finding harmony communally and harmony internally, externally and internally. And my blessing for all of you is exactly this. As you continue on your Jewish journey, which, as you know, never ends, may you find that balance. May you also find a way to take your own insights and apply that to Judaism so that I may learn from you. Whether you are Reform or Orthodox or conservative or whatever label, whether your skin is brown or white or green or orange like C3PO, it all doesn't matter. In fact, when you look at the Haggadah, even on the cover, we have people of all colors, and we have disabled people represented here as well. And you get the idea. So the bottom line is this. Make sure that in all of your pursuits, you never look at Judaism as your kryptonite, as your weakness. Look at it as a source of your strength, because that's what it is. We'll talk much more about that tomorrow, how superheroes began with Jews who were trying to run away from their Judaism. Now it comes full circle to be able to empower Jews with graphic novels and comic books. And as I like to say, please write a new chapter yourselves in the people of the book or the people of the comic book, and make Judaism your superpower. Shabbat Shalom. See you tomorrow.
Gorf, would you stay up here for a minute so we can do the Kiddush and Motzi?
I would love that.
Great.
But for a second, I thought you were going to hand me a pen and say, you know, you're 13 years old today, and we wish you mazel tov.
Today you are a man.
Today I am a man, right?
Thank you so much. That was a terrific opening. I encourage everyone, if they want to learn more about this topic and to learn more from Gorf, come tomorrow at 10:30, and then also tomorrow at 4. And there will be lots of time for questions, for interaction, and I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you. Why doesn't everyone please rise? We have an oneg waiting for us.
Yeah.
And let's start with the Kiddush. You wanna hold it with your good hand?
I will hold it with my good hand.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'tei avon.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat,
Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom.